Oh my goodness. Wait, does it just suddenly cut? Oh, it doesn't even fade out and start playing the credits? Oh, that was a good ending, though. I liked that. That was good. Courtesy of your friendly neighborhood spider wrench. I liked that. Wait, we can speed it up? Oh, we can speed it up like that. Interesting. Okay, so yeah, I wish that it would have faded out into like credits and whatnot instead of doing that, but you know, I had some mixed feelings about the original Watch Dogs Legion, like the whole base game and whatnot. I did generally enjoy it at the end of the day, but the way that I felt, like I was talking about this a bit earlier this stream, but with Watch Dogs 1, it was a linear game that just was like one story mission to the next, essentially, while doing some side stuff here and there if you really wanted to, and just telling like a story start to finish. With Watch Dogs 2, they were like, okay, this is supposed to be the game series all about like making arguments about like the potential of technology in the world, the dangers of it, what's possible with it, all that kind of stuff. It's a game about making arguments. And they decide, instead of telling a linear story, they would go with an open world setting where they were like, okay, here's just your world of San Francisco and missions all over the place. Each of them is like their own like mini plot line that makes its own arguments about the world and like technology and all kinds of stuff. And I thought that was a really fascinating take. It did mean that like the overall story wasn't as memorable because there wasn't as much of an overall kind of story. But it was still cool to see like how the characters interacted, since you had like the close-knit cast of like the Dead Set crew there, and it was cool to see how they interacted with like these different set story missions and whatnot, and how they develop as characters through all that, and you know, the arguments, the way that they would interpret the things. My headphones are popping like crazy again. I wish I had another pair of headphones I could switch to, but these are literally the only ones I have right now. And then with Watch Dogs Legion, it once again went with an open world kind of thing where it's like, yep, here's your world, here's a bunch of missions all over the place, just make progress in like all those in general, taking down like all the big bads around the city bit by bit. And it could have had like a very similar approach to Watch Dogs 2, where it's like you have a cast that you get to see how it's developing, but that was taken away with like the whole you can play as anybody kind of thing, which is a really cool idea on paper. Like when the first few trailers were coming out for this game, I was like, whoa, you could be playing as like this dude that's like a getaway driver to like get away, then you can play as like this hitman to like get in there, or you can play as like Granny who goes in there and like puts in a spider bot and stuff. But the way that it wound up working in this game is like you'll have like one or two characters that you really like playing as, and then the others is like, sure, you could switch to them to like have these other attributes, but you'd be like nerfing yourself, shooting yourself in the foot by taking away like the other stuff that you would have had with these other characters anyway. So I was mentioning this earlier, but there's games like, say, let's use Breath of the Wild as an example. Breath of the Wild feels like a game where there were countless moments where developers were like, what if we put that in the game? Like, there's so many moments that just feel like it was a what if we did that, and how would it work out, that go into the game that make it a freaking great experience. Like shield surfing, for example. Like, what if Link could surf on his shield? What if when you used your bow in midair it went into slow motion? What if you could stop time for objects and enemies? Like, there's a lot of things like that in that game that feel like people being like, what if you could do that, and they put it into the game. That's what it felt like with Watch Dogs Legion as well, which could have been really cool, but the way that it was like, what if there was an attribute that did this on like a character that you could randomly find in the world? What if there was an attribute that did this? And sometimes you'll see these attributes spawn, like maybe someone will have the attribute like Tough Drunk, and you could switch to somebody that has the attribute Tough Drunk. But by doing that, you've now lost all the attributes that you like. You're not currently using all the attributes that you would do on the characters that you like to play as anyway. So yeah, there's also the whole permadeath thing, which is thankfully an optional thing that like I turned off partway through our main game playthrough. It's an interesting take, but I didn't like the way that the permadeath was handled, because to recruit new allies, you need to do a mission for them, and that mission you're probably going to lose somebody along the way anyway. So it's like a 1-for-1, if not losing 2 to gain 1 new one, and it's like, what the hell? So that can freaking suck and whatnot. So I think that the permadeath in this game was an interesting idea, but wasn't handled as well as it could have been. But yeah, in general, I feel like both with Watch Dogs Legion and with Breath of the Wild, they were both games where there were so many instances of, what if we put that in the game? What if we put this in the game? Which can make a really cool experience. But in something like Breath of the Wild, all those things are like part of your kit that you have at all times. And something like Watch Dogs Legion is something you have to switch to. You switch to this person, so now you have these things, but you've lost these other things. So it kind of felt like the whole making your own team and stuff really didn't matter too much. Like, I feel like the making your own team kind of thing could have been more intriguing if it was like an online exclusive thing. Like, what if in the main game they had a set cast of characters like Watch Dogs 2, and those are the ones that you got to see interact with the world and develop and yada yada. But nothing of the sort in this game. It could have been cool to have like that you can recruit anybody, be the aspect for online, but that wasn't the... Well, that is the case in online, but it was the whole gimmick of like the main game kind of thing, which I feel like the execution of it wasn't the best because I never really wanted to play these other people. Like, maybe I could switch to this hacker that has unlimited key steal range, but then I wouldn't be having like all the stuff that I'd have as like a hitman, and it's like, I really don't want to do that. I wouldn't ever want to switch, so it didn't really feel like, you know, you were able to switch in like the easiest kind of way to switch these different specialties and you were unlocking new specialties. It just kind of felt like, okay, that's in my arsenal if I really want to use it, but I'm probably not really going to want to use it. So while both this and Breath of the Wild, as like my examples, I guess, feel like games with lots of stuff that was like, what if this was in the game being thrown into the game? And Breath of the Wild, you have access to it at all times. In a game like this, it's like, you gotta literally take away your other stuff that you like to be able to use this other things. So I feel like the whole being able to select any character was an intriguing thing, but wasn't quite executed as well as it could have been. And that's what takes me to Watch Dogs Legion Bloodline here, that did have set characters, being Aiden Pierce, the protagonist from the first game, and Wrench, one of the main characters of the Dead Set cast from the second game. And with that, both of them have like their own unique things and whatnot that make them unique to play. They have their own play styles and whatnot, and it kind of made me wish that like the main game of Watch Dogs Legion had that kind of thing where it's like you have a close-knit smaller cast that's just preset and they all have like really cool spicy things, unlike the way that it was where it's like you can see somebody on the street where it's like they have one really cool spicy thing but all the other stuff about them sucks. Like, for example, for any character that doesn't come with a weapon of their own, you're stuck using like the freaking shitty shock weapons that suck and whatnot, and it just feels like anytime you're in combat, like you're shooting yourself in the foot using these shock weapons when there's better alternatives just for the sake of being able to use those other attributes. So it really makes me wonder if what if, you know, there was that recruit anybody in like online, but for like the main campaign you did have like a close-knit kind of cast that all had like a kit similar to Aiden or Wrench, where it's like they have a wide variety of stuff that makes them fun in their own way, but they don't feel like, you know, you're majorly shooting yourself in the foot by switching to them, you know? They each have like their own playstyles without shooting yourself in the foot, unlike the main game of Watch Dogs Legion where it's like, I can switch to this one guy that has like chase drone immunity, but he's going to be using shitty shock weapons. He won't be able to do any fun like combat roll stuff. He's not going to be able to have any extra melee damage. Nothing. Just that one chase drone immunity. So I'm shooting myself in the foot in all these other ways just for that chase drone immunity. Like, in something like this, we didn't have the option to switch between Aiden and Wrench. It was just you do the first half as Aiden and the second half as Wrench. And I assume now that we've beaten it, we can have the option to switch between the two of them. But it makes me really wonder if, like, in Watch Dogs 2, you only had, like, the one playable character of Marcus until the final mission where you played as, like, the others as well. But it really makes me wonder, what if you did have a Watch Dogs 2-like cast of, like, 4 or 5 main key characters, and they each had a kit that was, like, different, but just as strong as Aiden/Wrench in this DLC here. Like, they each had their own unique things. That would have been really, really cool. Yeah, you do unlock Aiden. You know, the moment you have the DLC, as long as you freaking own the DLC, you have them unlocked. So you can play as them in the main game and the online and all that stuff. You do unlock them there. But because of the fact that your main cast is meant to be anybody off the street that has all these things that usually aren't that good until you find somebody really spicy spice, and that's like, why would you play anybody but them? It just becomes very limiting. The system in the main game was supposed to be all about like creating your own things and like customizability, but it felt more limiting than anything. So I had a lot more fun with Bloodline here than I did with the main game, with like these unique play styles that, you know, they're not all going to share the exact same playstyles. They're going to be different, like Aiden and Wrench with each other. Or take the other DLC character of Mina, for example, who was bugged when she released. Or the upcoming DLC character later this year that's going to be an Assassin's Creed character, essentially. What if that was your main cast? Which, I guess if you play in, like, you know, the casual kind of mode where the permadeath is turned off. I'm just saying casuals, like Fire Emblem terms. If you play in, like, the normal mode of the main game with the DLC unlocked, then sure, you can use them and, like, have these different, you know, qualities and whatnot going through the main game. But It wasn't the intended way. The intended way was for you to recruit people off the street and like switcheroo between a whole lot of them, and I never really felt that motivated to do that. So essentially what I'm trying to say is I really wish that the main game was more like Bloodline, and not just in that way. Like, when it came to telling a story, I didn't like Watch Dogs 2's story for a long time until I took a class on the use of history in video games that also analyzed how video games will make arguments about the world. And after taking that class and playing Watch Dogs 2 on this channel before Legion released, I got a newfound respect for it, to the point that I made a video essay on it called My Newfound Respect for Watch Dogs 2, talk about how it made arguments about the world. And it's like, okay, the story is not linear, so the story's not going to be as memorable in Watch Dogs 2. Like, I don't even remember what the big bad in Watch Dogs 2 was doing anymore, honestly. In fact, I don't even remember what the big bad in Watch Dogs Legion was doing anymore either. So the story itself wasn't too memorable in Watch Dogs 2 just because it was an open world kind of thing where you're doing things in whatever order and they're all making arguments about the world. And you can remember some of those arguments even if you don't remember the overall story. But with Watch Dogs Legion, it felt even more disconnected than it's ever been, because you don't get to see like characters that are being kept throughout the story like progress and grow because of the nature of, you know, you being able to recruit anybody. Like freaking any cutscene with any one of your random characters, their responses are always just like, here's this like preset generic thing that could fit like so many different interpretations, essentially, is what their dialogue would always be so much of the time. Like, you never got to see characters that you could grow attached to interacting with the world, because every single time that they talked to anybody or responded to anything was in like the most vanilla bread and butter kind of way of just like, I'm a generic character, and that's all they could be because of the fact that, you know, your cast could be anyone. So I think that the idea of being able to have a cast of anybody that you wanted was an interesting idea on paper and had a lot of potential, but it just made like a very strange, disconnected experience. And after playing and really enjoying Bloodline, it makes me really wonder what could Legion have been like if it had been more like Bloodline. Like I was saying before with Watch Dogs 2, I don't necessarily mind an open world kind of thing where you're doing a whole bunch of different mini plots that all make their own arguments about the world without that much of an overall story. But I feel like when you combine that with characters that you can't grow attached to, then it just feels like you're not advancing anything. Like in a linear game like Watch Dogs 1, you're obviously going to be advancing the story because you're going from one story mission to another story mission, seeing how Aiden is progressing. In Watch Dogs 2, it's going to be a lot more open-ended because, you know, there's all these disconnected, like, individual side stories that freaking tell, like, their own arguments about the world. But it still feels like you're making progress because as you're going through them, you're seeing how these characters develop, how they change, how they treat these different situations. But in Watch Dogs Legion, you don't have either of those. You don't have a linear story that, you know, is making you feel like you're making progress there. And you don't have a cast of characters that you can grow attached to and see how they're like progressing and changing over time and stuff like that. So because of those, throughout the entire experience of the main game of Watch Dogs Legion, it just feels like you're not getting anywhere for that reason. Whereas in Bloodlines here, it absolutely felt like you were getting places. You were progressing the linear story here with characters that, you know, you had potentially grown attached to through previous games, but even if you hadn't, you could grow attached to them through this. And there's a lot of people that worked on this game. I know I said that freaking when we beat the main game as well. And it made me really want to see how this played out. Like, Watch Dogs Legion, the main game, I really didn't care to see how it played out. Like, I was intrigued by some of the individual stories that it was telling and the arguments it was making about the world. The one that intrigued me the most in the main game was that of Sky Larson's, who we saw in this, who's being shown on the screen right now. The one that intrigued me the most was that one, and the concept of like putting human minds into machines and whatnot. That one was really intriguing. But, you know, apart from continuing to play just in the hopes that I'll get something more that's intriguing, that was like the only real motivation to continue playing. That and like covering it on the channel and stuff, I guess. Like, there wasn't a whole lot of mission diversity there. It didn't feel like I was getting anywhere. But with Bloodlines, there was the linear story that I actually wanted to see how it played out. And I really liked it. And it makes me really wish the main game was more like it. I was saying at the end of Watch Dogs Legion, like, that I had enjoyed the game in many ways, and I still stand by that. Like, I made a lot of really fascinating arguments, but it just was not in an engaging way. like at all. Whereas with this was in a much more engaging way. Like freaking take doing side missions in the main game and the online mode of this game, for example. In the main game, you'll get like some money, I guess. Does it give tech points? I don't know. There's like no reason to ever do side missions. There's faster ways to get currency in this game. There's freaking, I don't know if it gives tech points. There's better ways to get tech points if that's the case. I don't think they give tech points even. I think there's a finite amount of those in the main game. In online, you do the side missions and it'll give you like a little bit of your rank up for the season. And that's it, and some money, I guess. And there's faster ways to get both of those, so there's literally no reason to go around doing like the randomly generated side missions. Whereas in Bloodlines here, rather than side missions being all around the map and just being like randomly generated from like these preset things that could happen, and so that you can do them until like the end of time, even though it's the same repetitive thing each time, they actually had preset missions where it's like, yep, there's just one of each of these missions. Each of these is like a one-time thing, one and done. And they all have like their own little mini plot that they're telling because they get to be pre-designed like that instead of just like a weird match up the shapes randomly block kind of thing Bob, like it felt like the main game and onlines were. And as for the rewards in this, it's your skill tree is what the side missions are in this game. You do a side mission, you unlock another node in the skill tree. You get more hacks, you get more weapons and all that fun stuff. So it's like, whoa, these are now rewards I care about. So now I have more reason to do these side missions. And since they're pre-made side missions that there's a finite amount of, they were able to make them like, you know, way better than like the randomly generated from a bunch of different aspects thing of the main game and online, you know? And let me just say the wrench missions were so much fun. This is summed up why you prefer linear stories over open-ended games. Yeah, I typically do as well. Like, it's the reason why I initially didn't like Watch Dogs 2 as much when I first played it way back in the day, but nowadays I have a newfound respect for it for what it did. Of making arguments about the world. And that's the reason why Breath of the Wild story falls apart. Well, that and they tried to tell a story 100 years ago and basically no story in the here and now, but that's a whole separate matter. Like, stories are linear at the end of the day. That's what a story is. You can't read one page in a book and then skip to a random page and have it make sense. That's almost never gonna happen. So by creating an environment where you can do things in whatever order, telling a linear story is naturally going to fall apart. The solution that they tried to find for that with Breath of the Wild was like, let's just make it so the story already happened 100 years ago and you just get to learn about it. You don't get to make the freaking plot unfold in the here and now, but because the story already happened. That was their solution in Breath of the Wild, which could have been executed way better. But, you know, it can be a lot harder to stay engaged in open world games and open-ended kind of games for that reason, because you can't really have a linear story progress in quite the same way. I think that the way Watch Dogs 2 handled it was in a pretty good way, where it's like, you have a cast of characters that you can grow attached to. Like, my favorites absolutely being Marcus and Wrench. I think those were like most of people's favorites, like especially seeing the way that they interacted with each other and other people from there was like some of the best, like most satisfying kind of stuff. And it was cool to see how these kind of characters progressed in like meaningful ways through these open-ended missions, even though you could do them in like whatever order. Whereas Legion, it didn't have anything like that because you could recruit anybody. Whereas in Bloodlines, you did get to see that. You did get to see a linear story with the characters progressing and being like, whoa, so they're like, so that's how they treat that situation in ways that you care about because you care about these characters. Whereas in the main game, you don't care about your characters because they don't mean anything. Anyway, so Bloodlines handled its story in a very satisfying way. Way more satisfying than like main game Legion. And I'm not just saying that because this is linear whereas the main game isn't. Like if the main game Legion had handled it with the Watch Dogs 2 kind of situation where you do have a cast that you get to see progress, then I feel like it would have been better. But I feel like in their attempt to be hung up on this gimmick of you can play as anybody, it kind of held this game back from its full potential in a way where it's like they had this idea for a gimmick and they kind of pooled all their resources into that. And because of that, you didn't really see a whole lot of other stuff that you could do in Legion. Like in freaking Watch Dogs 1, you had like all your main mission stuff, but you could also do like the freaking racing side missions. You could do the criminal hideouts that were hella fun. The freaking criminal convoys, which are also hella fun, and you could wreck with a grenade launcher. Stuff was so much fun. You could go around to bars and do the weirdest drinking mini games. You could do the little ball under a cup mini game that I remember doing, and somebody running me over with an armored truck while that happened. That was pretty funny. Like, there's all kinds of these weird. There's even the freaking weird phone games that you have in Watch Dogs 1 that, like, you'll probably almost never play, these weird AR modes. But even if you never play them, the option is still there to do like a whole bunch of other stuff if you get bored. All these different game modes and whatnot. Or like the online hacking other players was like hella fun, honestly. And was supposed to be out for this game by now, but still isn't, I don't think. Or in Watch Dogs 2, for example. In that game, they had it be so that you can join other friends in their world. Like, single player and multiplayer were kind of like in the same entity, in a sense, in Watch Dogs 2. Where like a friend could join your world. You couldn't do story missions or stuff like that together. You could do side missions together. And you could do all these activities around the world that were actually pretty fun. Like, I remember, I didn't even know that those were options until Carvia hopped into my game and started playing things with me. Also, I don't know if there's meant to be like no music right now, but let's just turn on like my DBD stream playlist because there's like nothing here. So let's listen to some music. Apparently this is a Glitch X City remix of Sonic 2 right now. Yeah, let's turn on some music so it's not complete silence. I only found out when Carvia joined in that there's like a bazillion things to do around the world that was like hella fun. Like, we did sailboat racing with each other, for example. There's go-karting. There's freaking drone racing. There's all these wacky things where it's like, okay, you're probably not normally gonna do that, but when you have a friend join into your world and you just want to meme around, they can be like fun things to hop into for the fun of it. Like, I remember we were doing so many races with Carvia. Motorbikes, go-karts, regular cars, and like trying to hack different vehicles into each other. Yeah, he'd join my game and start to like hack me and stuff, and I'd be like, man, that Carvia nerd's trying to hack me. I gotta get him out of here. But in this game, there aren't really side activities. Like, there's the main story missions, I guess, and then like for other side activities, you can drink beer, which isn't a mini game like it was in Watch Dogs 1. It's just your character drinks, and if you keep drinking by pressing A, then they'll eventually pass out. You can play darts, which you can do better when you're drunk. There's like a thing where you can try to, what's the phrase, or what's the term for like when soccer players try to keep on lobbing the ball into the air over and over again, kicking it up. I don't know what the term for that is, but you can do that with like A presses or something. And that might be it. Darts, press A to drink beer and kick up the ball. There might be other things, I don't remember. There's like the randomly generated side missions that give freaking, you know, some in-game money, but like there are faster ways to do that. So why would you want to do these like randomly generated missions that get repetitive so fast that just feel like you're doing the same thing over and over? Like, there's no reason to do that. Or take the online, for example. In online, you can, my goodness, you can do like those same side activities like darts with friendos, which I'll try at some point, I guess. There's the tactical ops, of which there are currently 2 sets of missions right now, and you literally have to wait like up to an hour for an additional player to join your lobby and get the game underway, or to get about 4 people to join total. So you have a full group for these tactical ops that are actually really hard, and you absolutely need a full squad for it. You could be waiting for up to an hour for people to join that, so the matchmaking sucks. There's a couple tactical ops, which the tactical ops are actually really fun. Then there's more randomly generated side missions, which again, why would you want to do those? They give you money and freaking rank for that season in online, which there are faster ways to get both. So like, why would you ever do that? There's literally no reason. There's what's called city events, which make it sound like there's a whole bunch of different things that could potentially happen around the city. No, city events are only one thing that happen. An Albion swarm drone, which is basically just like a mini boss fight against this drone and a whole bunch of littler drones, which can be fun, but it's literally the only city event in the game. Sometimes the game will tell you, oh, there's a new city event that people can gang up together and like play together. And it's literally just the same swarm drone boss fight every time. Like, it can change between 2 different options of whether it summons more drones to fight you, or whether it oh, there is music playing again now in the game. Like, it'll change between 2 options of, will Albion be the ones fighting you as well, or will it be more little drones? But apart from that, the swarm drone itself is the exact same, and that's literally the only city event. So, and I guess there's spider bot arenas. The spider bot arenas is actually a really cool idea and is actually kind of fun. So in online, total things that you have to do, that you can do with your friendos, is freaking Spider-Bot Arena, Tactical Ops, one city event, and that's it. And then the freaking randomly generated side missions that are so repetitive, and there's better ways to get the rewards from those anyway. And things like darts and like kickball and like the super simple mini games that aren't nearly anywhere near as fun as things like freaking racing in Watch Dogs 2 with like sailboats, drones, motorcycles, go-karts, all these things that you could race with in that game. Or freaking, you know, do like the hacking invasions kind of stuff. But yeah, I can play darts better when you're drunk than when you're sober and have clear accuracy. Not necessarily, it's just meant to add more challenge when you're drunk and whatnot. You're out, enjoy your verdict, will do. Appreciate something by Reggie Bump. Have a good rest of the day. So yeah, I feel like in general this game could benefit from like more side activities. I really enjoyed the side missions within Bloodline, but I don't have any reason to like ever do side activities in the main campaign or online. It would have been really nice if the side activities like Bloodline were in the base game and online, where it's like you can do these missions that are actually really fun to unlock new stuff in your kind of tech tree and whatnot, but that wasn't the way that it was handled. Also, one way that I will criticize Bloodline is I wish there was a way to replay missions, because those missions, especially those like wrench ones that he was doing for Jordy, were really, really fun, quite frankly. I really enjoyed those. So whenever a game has things that are really, really fun, it makes me really wish that there was like a way to replay those missions, because oftentimes there isn't. I mean, maybe there is that I don't know about, but no previous Watch Dogs game has had that. I doubt this one does. Like, I really wish you could replay those Wrench Jordy missions, or any of the story missions along the way here. Like, you could replay story missions in Assassin's Creed games, at least the ones I've played. I haven't played the most recent 3, but, and there's no music here again, so I guess we'll go back to the playlist here and whatnot, is what we'll do. So it'd be nice if there was a way to replay those kinds of missions, like going around blowing up things with a drone for Wrench, or taking control of that one robot and taking out all the guards, being like, I am a normal robot that is doing normal robot things and all that fun stuff. Because those were really fun, and seeing those character interactions between Wrench and Jordy were really, really good. And then when it comes to character interactions, when it comes to the story being told here in general, I don't think it was perfect. Like, I do feel like the whole plot line of, you know, this dudo's making his robot army and trying to get these Mark IIs underway to do stuff. It feels like Wrench and Aiden and Jackson were kind of shoehorned into a plot that they didn't belong in a way, where it's like, this isn't their story, they just kind of wound up finding their way here by a series of unfortunate events, and that's why things are going the way that they are. Whereas, you know, in the first couple of games, it's like, okay, this is their story. This was more so as like, there's this story going on here, the big bad to take down, that, you know, the characters here feel a little bit shoehorned into. I assume the devs or the story writers here knew that, and to take action against that, wrote it so that Wrench was the one that originally designed the robots. And I think that was a good way to like help alleviate that shoehorned in feel a little bit, not completely. But like, Wrench actually had the personal connection to be there and whatnot. Aiden feels like the most shoehorned in, because, you know, he was just like, yep, time to take a job there because it's a, you know, good paying thing, and that's where Jackson lives, so it could be an opportunity to like see what's going on there, since he still cares about Jackson. So like, they don't feel as shoehorned in as like some plots I've seen. There are some plots there where it's like, these main characters just don't belong there at all, so they don't feel as shoehorned in as some stories I've seen out there. Like, the developers knew, like, whatever we do here, bringing freaking Wrench and Aiden to London is gonna somehow feel shoehorned in, so let's try to do our best to alleviate that. And they did a pretty decent job, like, alleviating it. It could have been better, but, you know, it's understandable. Like, we can understand why Wrench and Aiden are there. Like, it's not one of those stories where it's like, okay, they don't belong here at all, where it's like, okay, it's understandable why they're there and they found themselves in these circumstances. As for the way the characters were handled and whatnot, at the end of Watch Dogs 1, Aiden was a little bit kind of open for how you interpreted his character to be. It's like, did he learn things? Like, he was saying that at the end of Watch Dogs 1, it's like, okay, I realize now that, you know, my actions for revenge aren't gonna, you know, undo the past. I can't change that. But, you know, along the way, I did discover, you know, much more darkness than I anticipated, and was able to, you know, help do something to stop that. I'm gonna turn down the music slightly. This is Simon Gross music, a freaking channel that I discovered semi-recently, like a few months ago. I make some hella chill stuff like this. Are you playing things? Just, oh. I don't know if it's playing things. I'll just Alt-Tab off so that it doesn't play the music there. Oh, but now it's gonna be jumpy because I'm not clicked onto it. I don't know why it plays the music here sometimes and sometimes not. It's very, very strange. Well, I guess we'll, have this weird music for now. But in general, with the first Watch Dogs game, it's like, okay, did he really learn here? Did he develop? Does he want to stay away from this? It seems like he might continue this kind of vigilante kind of mission of his and whatnot. And that's what I thought that we might see with the beginning of, you know, Watch Dogs Bloodline here as well, which we saw like a little bit of his kind of, you know, edgy side of just going in to get a job and then get out of there. But the moment his family was involved this time, unlike the original Watch Dogs, he was like, some fights are worth losing. I'm just gonna concede this one and keep my family safe rather than, you know, trying to be some badass where Aiden Pierce kind of reminds me of Walter White in a way, where both of them are going down a path that they know might not be the best path, but are doing it because at the end of the day, they like that lifestyle and are doing it for themselves. Like, Aiden would use his family and protecting them as the excuse for him to, like, take down the people that he wanted to take down and hate and yada yada, to live this badass life and all that stuff. But this doing it for his family was just that excuse, because he was doing it because he liked it and whatnot, because this was, like, the lifestyle that he was most used to and the only thing that he really knew how to do. And we saw a little bit of that in Legion as well, where he was saying that he's taking this job and coming to see Jax because he hopes that he can, like, set up Jackson and his mother for life if he can. The music's gone again, so I'm playing the freaking thing once again. We'll skip to the next thing, Bob. But yeah, we saw a little bit of that here on Jackson being like, no, we don't need it. Like, I've got all these scholarships. I'm doing well for myself. We don't need you to get involved with, like, all these dangerous things for our sake and whatnot. And Aiden being like, well, I want to do it anyway to, you know, be more secure and safer and whatnot. Where it's like, is that really the reason? Or is he doing it because that's what he wants to do? But the moment his family was in jeopardy, it was neat to see that he had changed since Watch Dogs 1 and was like, yeah, I'm just going to concede this one. I'm not going to, you know, try to, like, shoot my way out of there, pull like a John Wick or something like that. I'm just going to concede, keep my family safe, and focus on our own happiness rather than, you know, trying to live this lifestyle that is tearing apart my connections with those around me. So it was really interesting to see how he changed in that way, but he was still battling those demons of his, because with the original Watch Dogs game, it wasn't really concluded how he kind of dealt with this lifestyle of his, him being like the vigilante, the fox, and all that stuff. He was kind of content just continuing it and continuing this, like, unhealthy lifestyle that he was trapped in, despite, you know, his main adventure being over and whatnot. And we saw him in this game with the Watch Dogs 1 really didn't wrap up his character. It was still open-ended and whatnot. And it was only as of this game that we saw with essentially Jackson confronting Aiden within his mind, him fighting these demons with, you know, Lena, and how he needs to take out all his enemies and stuff like that. And there's, like, all the dead bodies everywhere. He's, like, trapped in this mental hell of his. Is the game playing music again? Should I just, like... We've got to almost be there, right? Gotta almost be there. I'll pause the freaking thingamabob that we have here, I guess, and just go fast is what we'll do. So this actually finally wrapped up his character with him being like, yeah, I just want to lay down and die now, and Jackson being the one to get through to him and being like, you can leave that part of your life behind you. That's not a life that you have to live. You can be content just, you know, living a life as my uncle and stuff like that. I thought that was really cool to see how that was the thing that was able to kind of break him out of that loop. Like, because you would think that at the end of Watch Dogs 1, it would be the place that he could break out of that loop, but he wasn't. So it's like Bloodline was kind of like the overdue wrap-up of his character to finally give him closure and whatnot, and finally have him be content with who he could be, rather than being content with freaking trying to put on this persona and whatnot, and trying to do what he preferred and whatnot. I guess we'll just hit skip. Wrenches in the water there. So it was really interesting to see that, and I feel like it wrapped up his character there really well, honestly. So I really like to see that. It's like he finally got a proper conclusion.
I didn't expect you to turn him over to Albie in custody.
Well, I asked myself, what would Aiden Pierce do? And then I asked myself, is that who I really wanted to be? Look, no offense, big guy.
I think you made the right call.
Even if I wanted to smash him into teeny tiny little pieces and scatter them all over the Thames and turn him into seagull shit.
Well, progress is a journey. What's next on the docket for you? Heading home?
Nah, I think I might hang around London for a bit, wrap up a few things. But I do think I'll give Marcus a call, though. Actually, hey, yeah, I wanna take a selfie in front of Big Ben and send it to him. Or maybe I should go to Buckingham Palace and steal a roll of some royal TP. Get him a souvenir.
Great. Looks like whatever trouble you get into, we'll have to fish you out of it.
Aw, that's so sweet. What a nice family moment. We really do make the dream team, don't we? Jackson and his 2 uncles.
2 uncles?
Shh, shh. It's okay. Don't worry about it.
Oh, man. But yeah, so I feel like it really wrapped up Aiden's character really well, and I feel like that was a satisfying conclusion. Ubisoft is now available, so now we have, yeah, these 2. Nice. Nice, nice. Aiden Pierce, vigilante, exposed the mayor of Chicago for murder. Wrench, your future husband killed Helena Wojcik? The hell? He's 41 now, apparently. Old world record for coolest mask, voted most likely to hack CTOS, searched air null code, fuck off. Totally beat Aiden Pierce in a fist fight. Why are you still reading? Known affiliations, Desert San Francisco. Huh. Huh.
Wow, looks like the 3 of you got a lot done together. Colour me impressed.
Truly, I am a miracle worker.
If you lot are sticking around for a bit, I could use a hand down the road. One of my contacts managed to find a DedSec member who survived the London attacks. She's been hiding out in the north this whole time. We need to set up a communication link with her.
No problemo, Connie. We got this.
Great. Once I've gathered all the details, I'll be in touch.
Okay, let's say it all together now. Go team! Aiden, come on, man. You gotta say it with me. Come on. Go team!
Check the missions menu to track. Yada yada. So we have that. So yeah, I gotta do those as Aiden and whatnot. I really do wish there were more wrench missions than just these Geordie ones here. I really like the Geordie missions. We might still be coming back to this to finish off these other missions, because honestly, the missions in this game were really, really fun. So we may well be coming back to this. And we still have like some more stuff to wrap up with online. We never finished off the second tactical op, so I'm gonna have to do that still. Is the thing. Gonna have to come back to that. We finished the first mission of the second tactical op, but not past that, so we're gonna have to come back and freaking, you know, finish off the next 4 in that set and whatnot. But yeah, so I really like the way that it wrapped up Aiden. I do like the excuse that they had for like Wrench being in here, where, you know, as I was mentioning earlier, to make him feel less shoehorned in, where it's like he was the one that designed the robots and got, you know, royally screwed in the process and whatnot. Back. Crossing the street, I gotta go to burgers and whatnot. And it was neat to see that he had progressed since Watch Dogs 2 as well, because in that game, you know, he would never take off the mask. The moment that his mask was like forcefully removed, he would feel like incredibly socially insecure and whatnot, and just be like kind of a wreck without it and whatnot. Like he had to have the mask on to feel safe. Whereas in this, like, he would still usually have the mask on, like, that's what he's used to. It's kind of like me wearing my hat and whatnot. It's like what I'm used to and what I'm comfortable with and whatnot. But the moment he wanted to actually have, like, an intimate, like, for real, serious moment with somebody, he'd take it off and, you know, be Reggie instead of Wrench. Like, when Aiden came into his hideout, for example, he took off the mask and just genuinely talked with him, or talking with our freaking big bad at the end. So it was cool to see that he had progressed and, you know, doesn't necessarily need it to be able to, you know, have any semblance of security to himself anymore. Like, he's willing to do it when he really wants to have those heart-to-heart and serious kind of moments. But most of the time, he's going to be a filthy memer, and the mask is kind of the side of him that represents that in a way. That's what he's gonna be like the most comfortable most of the time. But if he needs to, he is absolutely able to have those more serious moments now that he wasn't as capable of having back in Watch Dogs 2. So that was really cool to... Can I not vault this? Gosh darn it. So that was cool to see that there was progression for both Aiden and Wrench since their last games. Aiden being willing to lose fights and like move on and be happy with his family, though not still completely content, and Jackson needing to be the one to break through to him to, you know, finally leave that life behind him for good. And Wrench no longer needing to, you know, hide behind the mask to have like any semblance of security to himself, and being willing to have those intimate kind of heart-to-heart moments when he needs to, and actually take things seriously outside of the filthy meme lord that he usually is, you know? Can I really not get in here? Oh. Weird. Well, this is my stand now, I guess. Can I walk out normally? Nope. That's silly. Dev's probably never even realized that. But yeah, so overall, I actually really enjoyed the story here. Like, the main antagonist could have been a better thing than just, you know, a quick fabrication for the sake of having a plot that brings Aiden and Wrench together. I like the way that Aiden and Wrench were handled. I feel like the villain could have been a bit better than just like, yep, here's a villain for a reason for Aiden and Wrench to come together and whatnot, you know? Because the villain in this game literally just felt like a reason for these two to come together. So it would have been nice if the villain had been something more than that. But, I mean, it's also a tricky thing because, like, how do you make a villain more than that in this kind of a case without it being, like, too cheesy, I guess? How do you make these two characters from different places in the States go across the ocean, like, a decade and a half later to London and not just have it be, like, some generic kind of dude? How would it have a personal connection to both of them? He had a sore personal connection with Wrench that was created, and it was pretty alrighty. But could he have with Aiden without it feeling like super cheesy and shoehorned in? Like, I was affiliated with the group that took out your niece or something like that. Like, that would feel like, okay, freaking, what a shoehorn, you know? So, like, I feel like the villain felt a little bit out of place. I really like the way that Aiden, Wrench, and Jackson were handled, the main characters. The villain could have been better, but it's also a tricky situation where it's like, okay, how do you freaking make that villain have, like, more of a connection without, you know, being too cheesy? Like, I feel like the best villains in stories are ones that you do get to see the more human side of them, and, you know, see them fall from graces and whatnot. Like, for example, Xenoblade Chronicles is a really good example of this with Egil, where, you know, he's a villain that genuinely believes he's in the right, and started out, you know, wanting the best for everyone, and he believes that his actions as the main villain of the game for the longest time, what the hell's going on with that boat over there, are in the right and just, and he'd kind of fallen from, you know, trying to save everybody to just being like, let's just save those who can be saved and whatnot. You see him fall from graces and whatnot. And this game kind of alluded a little bit to having a villain that could fall from graces, like when Wrench was talking to him about, like, you gave, like, those spiels about, you know, bringing humanity to greater heights, and, okay, what is going on with that boat? Can I go over there? Will it stop flashing? What is happening with that boat anyway? But then he was just like, I lied to you. Like, there could have been, I think that they should have stayed with, like, the whole idea of he did genuinely want to bring humanity to greater heights, but he lost that vision. Because that's how you get, you know, more likable villains, more genuine, more human villains and whatnot. So this game could have been on the right track with, you know, him once wanting to bring humanity to greater heights, but then losing sight of that and just wanting control. But then the game was like, nah, let's not go down that line. I said that I wanted to bring humanity to greater heights. I was just lying to you, you naive fool, or whatever the heck he said. It's like, ah, dang. He could have been a better character if that was, like, actually the truth. Anyway, hello, Diego. How's it going today? My, oh my. Yeah, it was 4-player shenanigans by the stream notification because we were doing 3D World earlier. We come over here and the freaking boat isn't flashy and weird anymore. Wacky. So yeah, I feel like if they had just gone with that idea of, you know, he genuinely did want to, you know, bring humanity to greater heights, but then lost sight of that, he would have made a better villain. But then they just gave him the line like, I lied to you. I just lied to take advantage of you. It's like, oh, you were humanizing him there. And then, now a boat's flashing over there. What the hell? It's like they started humanizing him, and then they were just like, nah, that bit where we were humanizing him, yeah, let's just take that away. Yeah, no. So, I feel like that line should have been taken out of him saying I lied to you. He should have had like a moment of reflection being like, yeah, I did once stand for that, but maybe this is the only way to achieve that, and then Wrench disagreeing with him. Kind of like you would have seen with like a Shulk Egil interaction in Xenoblade Chronicles, where Egil's like, this is the only way that I can save the world, by doing these villainous things. That's the only way that I can save the world. And Shulk being like, well, I'm gonna try to find a better way, and all that fun stuff. Would have been cool to see something here instead of him just being like, nope, I lied to you, I'm just evil. But alas, check your phone, there's dank memes being sent to it. And speaking of dank memes and the way this game handled characters, I really, really liked the freaking, yeah, the flashing boats. In addition to the flashing boats, I really liked freaking Wrench's memes. They were great. Look at that flashing boat there. Like, he has so many pop culture references and so much of his stuff, like, Wrench smash! Let's see if we can hear the other one. Okay, that's just the grunt. No. No, the other one. Give me the other one. Give me the other one. Come on. Why is it giving me the other one? Come on. Am I just getting a really bad RNG right now? This hammer's hacking that boat in all kinds of weird ways. Come on, give me the other one. Okay, not that one. There's another one. There's another one, I swear. Okay, we're not getting it right now. But one of the ones that he has that I found out when doing that a whole bunch was one of his lines for that is, you want me to put the hammer down? A reference to freaking Thor in the first Avengers movie. To Captain America being like, you want me to put the hammer down? He's not gonna do it though. He's not gonna do it right now. Sometimes when I summon the drone Sergio, I've heard him say, come to me, my pretty. Not this time. Not this time. Gosh darn it. But sometimes he says that. Like, sometimes here or there, he does all these freaking pop culture references that are honestly really funny. And the way that he handled himself within the cutscenes, I also found, like, really amusing. My headphones just cut out completely again. My goodness, I really need to replace these things. Holy crap. Like, when one of the characters that was gonna brief him is meeting him for the first time and is saying hello, he just goes, hi. Moments like that just really cracked me up. I really like those kinds of moments that are just kind of, you know, stupid funny in, like, the best way. Can't just put this in the water. I want to hear the come to me, my pretty. But there's just so many oh, I guess because I'm in a restricted area. There's just so many lines of his that just really, really cracked me up. Like, Wrench was already a pretty fun character in Watch Dogs 2 with the way that he handled himself, but now as a playable character within this game, the way that they handled him, I honestly really, really enjoyed it. It cracked me up constantly. Like, I had more laughs during Bloodline here than I have during, like, either of Watch Dogs 1 or 2, like, as a whole. Honestly. Almost completely because of Wrench. Hello, hello, Cold Blood XD. How go things today? Maybe if I... Wait, Sergio's probably off the map now, right? Nah, it's unavailable for a little while. But yeah, the way that this game handled humor with that, was honestly more comedic than I ever found Watch Dogs 1 or 2. I really, really enjoyed the way that they handled him in this game. It was very, very funny. Only got half what you said. I've been giving a full review of this whole DLC side story for like the past good while now. When it comes to other things with it, and speaking of things going on for a while, the final boss went on for a while, especially because it got bugged out and it stopped fighting me, and I wanted to beat it normally instead of it just giving up like it did when it bugged out. So twice I had to back out to the main menu and come back in to get the final boss to fight me again, which was like very strange. So, you know, it being a Ubisoft game, there are definitely things sometimes that, you know, are like, okay, yeah, just Ubisoft game things. Check your phone for dank memes. Congratulations, you are being rescued. Please do not resist. There's no point in rescuing people in this mode. In Bloodlines, there's no point of rescuing people, but... Hi. Can't take you down or do anything? Okay, I'll just be on my merry way and stuff. But yeah, overall, I guess what this main review of this is trying to say is, like, I really enjoyed Bloodlines here. I feel like the main game tried to do so much of everything with, like, its different characters and attributes, and in doing so, it lost its focus that it would have otherwise had, and kind of just became an experience where you have a world where, like, things are happening and people you can recruit all over the place. Like, the world felt alive and stuff. Like, the world felt plenty alive, but it didn't feel like you were really doing things in it, is what it felt like. Because, you know, there were story missions and stuff, but because your cast was preset, it didn't really feel like they were growing or progressing in any way. So it just kind of felt like a world where things happen. And that's all that the main game of Watch Dogs Legion felt like, a world where things happen. But, you know, in Bloodlines here, it actually had that focus where, you know, you have it had that linear story, which not every game needs. Like, I feel like the way that Watch Dogs 2 handled its open world story was in a good way. But the way that Legion handled its open world story, I didn't like. I much preferred the format of Watch Dogs 2's open world story, where you have a cast that's changing over time. Unlike Legion, that's just like, here's a preset cast that's going to interact with everything in the exact same generic way every single time, you know? Like, being able to play as anybody was a cool idea, but I feel like it held the game back more than anything. So, in this game mode here, with, like, the focus on Wrench and Aiden and telling that linear story, with plenty of dank memes along the way, with Wrench here, made for a really enjoyable time. It made for a great way to wrap up, you know, Aiden's character, and to show that, you know, things have changed. And is this boat glitched out, or is it supposed to be sunk? I don't know. I think it's supposed to be. It looks like there was an accident here. So I really enjoyed the way that it handled that. And let me tell you, the freaking final dank meme of this game, where the main villain is like, you can't stop me. I'll just come over, or I'll just come after you and hunt you down and stuff. And it fades to black, and then as it fades back in, it shows him tied up for Albion to come and get him with a little note, like, courtesy of your friendly neighborhood spider wrench, that I couldn't read it at first. I had to turn my head sideways to read it, but the moment I read it, that freaking cracked me up. That was a great final meme. The amount of pop culture references Wrench has is so hilarious in, like, the best possible way. But I thought it was really cool how, you know, in the original Watch Dogs 1, Aiden goes around freaking killing all his enemies and stuff like that, taking them all out one by one. Whereas in this game, by the end, like, Aiden's final thing, he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna concede this one and not win. I'm just gonna give him what he wants and, like, concede this, not go to the effort. Whereas Wrench, after taking down the Dudo, he was about to kill him, but then he was, then as he was saying, just after this was over, he was like, I was just thinking, what would Aiden Pierce do and what should I do instead? And he decided to, like, change things up, and it was interesting. Like, Wrench didn't need his character to be wrapped up, but it was cool to see this additional side of him. Like, Aiden absolutely needed his character to be wrapped up, and I feel like this did a good job of, like, wrapping up his character after the original game left it kind of hanging and whatnot. Like, it actually gave him a good, satisfying conclusion now. And Wrench didn't necessarily need anything extra, but after seeing him in this, the way that he interacted with the Pierces, with Jordy, with the villain, with the world, it was a really satisfying experience where it's like, okay, he didn't need this, but I'm really glad he got it, you know? I want to see if he can say, you want me to put the hammer down. Okay, we're not getting the come to me my pretty quote, unfortunately. We're not getting the thing. It's such a big sad. We're getting all the wrench smashes, but I'm such big sad. I'm such a big sad. But yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I really think that I enjoyed this DLC side story more than I did the main game. Just because it was more focused. And whatnot. Well, not just because it was more focused. All the other things I've been listing off. Like, not everything about this is perfect. Usually it's just, like, smaller things that are irksome. Like the fact that the freaking transition animation for this into flying mode is so jumpy. Like, it starts folding in, and then you can tell that this is one entity, And this is like a completely different programmed entity. The game doesn't handle it like one entity is changing to the other. The game is clearly handling it as like despawn this entity, spawn in the other one. And you can tell because it briefly vanishes as it's folding it. And then like the other one just appears. Vanish and then appear. So, you know, the coding for that could have definitely been better. And I hit this and then this one despawns and the spider spawns. So this could have definitely been way smoother if they did program it as like one entity. But they programmed it as two entities and in a little bit of a wonky way. So there are littler things like that where it's like, okay, that could have been more satisfying. This bot in general is hella freaking cool. Spider bot that transitions into a flying drone. That's so cool. And the way that it was in Watch Dogs 1 was you had like no RC tech of any kind until the Bad Blood DLC. It seems like freaking with DLC side stories, Watch Dogs has a habit of putting blood into the title. Bad Blood in Watch Dogs 1 and now Bloodline in Watch Dogs Legion. But that game introduced the RC car, and then in Watch Dogs 2 you had an RC car and an RC drone that you could switch between the two of. Whereas in this game, it was like, you could put a spider bot on anybody. Anybody could have like the spider infiltration bot that's like the replacement for the RC car, which is honestly a really cool thing. Like, how cool is a freaky remote control spider bot? That's hella cool. And then, while anybody could in theory use a spider bot, only some characters could use a drone. And it would usually be like a C2S drone. Maybe sometimes it'd be like a freaking shock drone. But, you know, you'd have to play somebody specific if you wanted to be able to use a drone. And because the game knew that you would need to have somebody specific to use a drone, none of the sections were designed with that in mind, where it's like you need to use a drone to progress here. Or you can use a drone to progress in like a really unique way, usually most of the time. Whereas Watch Dogs 2, since it knew that that was your kit that you had all the time, you always had an RC car and an RC drone, it was able to make some really interesting puzzles around that, like switching between the two. Like you'd have to, you know, use a forklift to drive it over there to form like a platform to jump your RC car onto and then jump it into like the vent or something like that. Or maybe you'll need to switch to the RC drone from there and control like another thing to get the RC car onto or something like that. Like there were really cool unique puzzles that you could make from that. And they had like puzzles for the spider bots, but because very few people had drones in the main game, there wasn't really a whole lot of use for it. Like the CTOS drone summon, basically useless. The shock drone summon, basically only useful for combat. The cargo drone summon was definitely useful since you could ride around on that and you could break things with that by getting your doodle places. But there was like almost next to nothing that you could do with an actual drone itself going around and hacking things. Unlike, you know, something like Watch Dogs 2 where your drone could be absolutely incredible. Like you could go with a kind of ghost play style of having your RC stuff do everything and you never having to get in there. Whereas in this game that wasn't really an option. It didn't really have that much option for, you know, different play styles. Even though with being able to recruit anybody, the whole name of the game is supposed to be having all kinds of different play styles. But it just felt like every mission in the main game had the same generic way that you beat it. And you can use like different things to do that same objective, but it's not like you're really doing it in that much of different ways, you know? Like the drone summon was not that useful in that. And that makes me really wish that like, what if this was like the main thing that you had in the main game? This freaking drone that can switch between being a spider bot and a drone that you can fly around. Like, that's so cool. Also, I have literally no audio, once again, because these headphones desperately need replacing. This is absolutely absurd. Because in Watch Dogs 2, you had your ground drone being like the RC car, and you had your flying drone as the RC drone. Whereas in Legion here, you just had the spider bot as like the one thing that for sure everybody can have. And then some people would have a drone. So basically nothing was designed around that. There were some things designed around spider bots, but nothing around using these kinds of drones to do cool things. So it makes me really wish that like this thing, because this thing is so cool and they designed some like cool things meant for it within Bloodline here. I wish they had done some more design for this. But they were on the right track for designing some cool things and like puzzles to solve for this to use. And it makes me really wish that like the main game was designed around this rather than this being a thing that's exclusive to the DLC side story, because this is so cool. So the fact that it's exclusive to this little side story just makes it be like, wow, this was like so much missed potential within the main game that you really wish was there, and online. I don't think you can use this online either. I'm pretty sure this is just DLC side story exclusive. But yeah, switch from spider, drone is visible, but you can't see drone to spider. The spider just pops in. Wait, is that the switch? Yeah, if I press RB, it just changes the entity. It doesn't switch. Like, it starts switching here, and then it despawns briefly, and then it spawns in that one. Like, it changes what entity it is. Like, so this definitely could have been programmed better. For sure. It could have been a way more satisfying animation, like the freaking skells in Xenoblade Chronicles X. Like, at least the transforming into the drone, whoa, is semi-satisfying, but it does despawn at the last second to replace with the drone if you look closely. Briefly kind of vanishes and freaking gets replaced with the flying drone. So the game interprets it as different entities rather than the one entity changing, unfortunately. Because I guess the main game was never designed to have something like this. And then there's just like no animation at all for transitioning back. It just freaking literally despawns the flying entity and spawns back in the grounded one. So, you know, there's that. Did I ever use the sonic charge? I really should have used it some more, shouldn't I have? Really should have used it some more. Hi! Hi, how you doing? So yeah, stuff like this is so cool, but it just makes you wish that this was in the main game, you know? Because you go to the main game and you want to use tech in that, and it's literally just like such a massive nerf, you know? Because like some people have drones, most don't, so the game is designed around like some spider bot bits, but for the most part it's not really designed around it at all. But if we had, you know, puzzles and whatnot that were designed around having something like this, kind of like how in Watch Dogs 2 you had a RC car and a drone, that could have made like some really cool puzzle solving kind of things. And some really cool, unique ways to handle missions in different ways, like freaking Watch Dogs 2 promoted. Like, Watch Dogs 2 was like, do you want to go in there guns blazing and develop that skill tree to be better at that? Do you want to, like, get in there, like, freaking stealthily with Marcus and, like, hack things and hack your way to victory? Or do you want to be like a ghost that never even enters the compound and use your RC car and drone to just do it all remotely and develop those skill trees? Like, there were these three main play styles within Watch Dogs 2 that you could develop the skill trees for, like, on your own terms and whatnot, the way that you want them to develop. Whereas this game was just like, yeah, everybody kind of has the same generic kit. You do the exact same mission the exact same way, even though the whole name of the game was supposed to be recruit everybody and, like, recruit anybody you want and, like, play with their own unique play style. But you never actually get to freaking really use that unique playstyle in the ways that, you know, you would have been able to with the different playstyles of Watch Dogs 2. So I feel like this game had a lot of missed potential that Bloodlines managed to do, like, way better than the main game of. Like, I really, really enjoyed this DLC. I really, really enjoyed Bloodline. This was really, really good. This was an awesome time. Like, again, not perfect. Like, this animation, it just doesn't do the things that should. So it's like not perfect, but this was honestly really good. And it really makes me notice even more how much better the main game and online could have been, you know? So I know that a lot of this whole review has been like me kind of bashing Watch Dogs Legion, but the reason is, for like most of this DLC, I really, really like this DLC. It was really good, and it makes me wish that the main game and online were better by being more like this, you know? So that's my ramble. This might be worth doing like a dedicated podcast on. Like, podcasts are kind of like my video essays that aren't worth putting, you know, weeks to months of editing time into. So I'd be very tempted to do like a video essay that I just read out the script for with minimal editing and just make it a podcast on this subject, because, you know, as I've made evident with how long I've been rambling here, I think it's very worth talking about. So it's interesting. So altogether, I really enjoy Bloodline, and it makes me really wish that the main game of Legion and online stuff is like, it's still good, but it's like, it's missed so much potential. Like, the main game and online aren't necessarily bad, but they just feel lacking. Like, they tried to have so much emphasis on, like, recruit everybody and play to those playstyles that they lost their focus on actually being able to have, like, a fleshed out gameplay and story experience that Bloodlines was able to capture a lot better. That's how I feel, at least. That's how I feel about it, at least. Boop. Boop. Let's hack some vehicles with a hammer. Let's try one more time to see if you want me to put the hammer down. Nope. Nope. But the tools that they gave to Aiden and Wrench here are really fun. Like this hammer that hacks everything. I love it. What's this guy doing? Shroud you, I guess. My headphones just cut out again. Great. Let's see. He's not saying anything. Big sad. Big sad. I love how the drone speaks, though. Oh, yeah. I can't even understand what it's saying a lot of the time, but yeah. That's basically my spiel about this whole thingamabob. I don't know whether Bloodline is available as its own, like, standalone thingamabob. I know that sometimes Ubisoft with DLC side stories will sometimes release them as standalone things. I think that it is. Don't quote me on that. Like, when it comes to... If I ever am talking to somebody in the future who's debating about getting Watch Dogs Legion and getting into it, what I'd honestly recommend them, if this is available as a standalone thing, is, like, try out Bloodline. Like, that's where it's at. And then if you really like that, then you'll probably still like the... Is my game freezing? My game's gonna crash or something, isn't it? I don't know what's going on. Then you may like the main game of Watch Dogs Legion a bit more. I feel like the main game is a lot more hit or miss than this. Yeah, I enjoyed this more than the main game. And, well, we'll see how things develop. There's gonna be one more big wave of DLC. Ow, jeez! I cannot deal with these headphones. They literally just start crackling in my ears. My goodness, they're literally the only pair of headphones I have that I can use right now. Actually, I guess there's, like... I do have a pair of wireless headphones that I have back here. But, like, they don't go all the way over my ear, so they give me headaches. Because that's what happens when they don't go all the way over my ear. So I can use these for, like, maximum an hour, and then I have to stop using them. Oh, my goodness. I need to go into, like, I don't know, Best Buy or something like that and start browsing headphones. Because, my goodness gracious, I cannot deal with those things freaking buzzing the hell out of my ear whenever they feel like it. My goodness, maybe I've just been hacked in real life. Something like that. It's weird hearing my own voice a little bit more now that they're not covered with headphones. But yeah, I feel like if anybody out there is debating about, you know, getting Watch Dogs Legion, the thing that I would recommend first and foremost would honestly be Bloodline. Honestly, I'd honestly recommend Bloodline before main game Legion, especially if somebody in question has played Watch Dogs 1 or 2 or both. Because I feel like the way that this game handled things wasn't perfect, but it was really, really good, and this was really fun. And I can definitely see myself coming back to this. We'll probably be coming back to Bloodline to do those extra side missions and such, because those are actually really fun. So I can absolutely see myself coming back to this to do that. And I mean, we'll also be continuing with, like, more Watch Dogs stuff with the online stuff that I missed, as I mentioned before. The last big wave of DLC is going to be sometime later this year. It's not going to be any additional story stuff like this. Like, this is the biggest bit of DLC this game's getting. But apparently later this year, you're going to be able to play as an Assassin's Creed character in DS. Like a new original one, but you have to play as one of them freaking dudos. There's the first official crossover. Like, Watch Dogs 1 already kind of crossed over with Assassin's Creed in a semi-subtle way with the final criminal convoy mission. But now you actually get to play as a dudo, so hopefully they execute it well. Hopefully it's not like the last DLC character, Mina, who was completely bugged at launch and just unplayable. I think she's playable now, but back then she was just not playable at all because she was so bugged the hell out. So yeah, we'll see what more this game has to hold. We're definitely not done with Watch Dogs yet. More stuff with the Bloodlines, more side missions, more stuff with online. And then there's some more DLC coming out in the future. Oh, and there's like more stuff with Legion of the Dead as they roll stuff out with that, I guess. So, still plenty more to cover. This series is definitely going to go over 100 parts if it hasn't already. It probably hasn't already. There's no way the stream cuts up into that many parts that it's going to go over 100. But as things go on, it'll definitely wind up going over 100, which is crazy, I think. Speed through the freaking checkpoint. I've been rambling for a good while. It's time to stop rambling and wrap up this stream. Is what we do. I really need to sort out that headphone situation. Those headphones are driving me insane. My goodness gracious. But yeah, I really enjoyed this, quite frankly. I really enjoyed it. I really wish the final boss bugged the hell out and refused to fight me a couple times. But it is what it is. So thanks all who stopped by and hung out. And I'm going to be getting some sleep here soon and getting ready for Skyward Sword HD. So take care all and see ya.